In the WikiLeaks DNC emails that were leaked over the weekend, there were countless bombshells. So, for example, they admit that Hillary's super PAC was paying online trolls to correct her detractors. All those Bernie Sanders supporters who were out there saying, hey, you voted for the Patriot Act. Hey, you voted for the Iraq War. Hey, you were in favor of terrible free trade agreements like NAFTA. People were paid to respond to you. All those eggs on Twitter who were like, Hillary's awesome. A lot of them were paid by a super PAC. Oh, that's the saddest thing ever. When you have to pay people to counter a lot of arguments against you because so many arguments against you are so pervasive and so overwhelming and they're all over the internet. So in the DNC emails, you have one DNC official talking to another and they're like, oh, no, it's cool, don't worry, because Hillary's people, they're paying people to respond to that. Oh, again, so sad. So on top of that, they also planted stories in the Washington Post, and they planted stories elsewhere. They had, a few names were thrown back and forth of, oh, these are the reporters who are most kind to us, and, avoid these reporters because they're the ones who are least kind to us. But one of the most damning stories is this. Mika Brzezinski of Morning Joe apparently said in a segment that Debbie Wasserman Schultz and the DNC have been unfair to Bernie. As a response to that segment, Debbie Wasserman Schultz flipped out. So she emailed another top DNC official and said, quote, "This is the last straw. This is outrageous. She needs to apologize." Whoa. What's your position again? You're the head of the DNC. What do? They're in the media. What's the media supposed to do? The media is supposed to fact check and be critical of the government and those in power and the political parties. So she's doing her job. This is a rare instance where on Morning Joe they did a decent job. And Debbie Wasserman Schultz, look at how entitled she is. She's like, "Did you dare besmirch me on air? I will not stand for it. I will not have it. This is the last straw. The last straw." Now, here's where a lot of people think, well, I mean, come on. That's going to be pretty ineffectual, right? It's not like, how does she have sway over what's supposed to be an independent media organization? Well, she then turned around and emailed Chuck Todd. Chuck Todd is, of course, prominent MSNBC host and NBC hosts Meet the Press. And she said, "Chuck, this must stop. I would like to discuss this with you today." Now, naturally, Chuck Todd turned around and told her, "Fuck off. She's doing her job. Like, well, why are you so upset? This is what happens. This is what the media is supposed to do." No, what did he do? He's like, "Okay, yeah, no, I will come talk to you. Yes, I cannot wait to come talk to you. I'm Chuck Todd. I'm very tough on people in power. What can I do for you, Debbie Wasserman Schultz? What can I do for you?" So then she said, "I've been talking to Phil about this since our breakfast." And you're like, who the fuck is Phil? Uncle Phil from Fresh Prince? Dr. Phil? From, the show about psychology and stuff? Phil Griffin. You know who Phil Griffin is? Phil Griffin is the president of MSNBC. She was criticized on air by one of the hosts, and so she climbs the ladder to complain to try to get them to shut up Mika. Do we even need to have further debate and further discussion? This is clear collusion between the DNC, the Democratic Party, and MSNBC. Now, don't get me wrong. Does this shit go on at Fox News? Oh, you betcha. So you don't think Fox News, the top officials at Fox News are emailing with people in the RNC and pushing the narratives and, basically being the media arm of the Republican Party? Of course that's the case over there. That needs to stop there, but it also needs to stop here. MSNBC is the media arm of the Democratic Party. They're not the liberal network. They're not the progressive network. Because that would mean you actually care about policy positions and you hold people accountable no matter what. And you fight for that vision for the country and you fact check and you do your job. They're not doing that. They don't have a liberal bias or progressive bias. They have a Democratic Party bias. The head of the DNC is trying to fucking pull strings and say, shut that one up, fire that one, promote that one, do this, do that, this has to stop, I need an apology, so on and so forth. This is beyond damning, man. I mean, and again, they tried to pretend, the DNC tried to pretend, us? We're neutral. We weren't in favor of Hillary Clinton from the beginning. Well, there's another leak. They admit that there were DNC and Hillary Clinton moles inside Bernie Sanders' campaign. They infiltrated the campaign to then send them information so they could use that information against Bernie Sanders. This is on top of the other emails that talk about how let's give questions to the media before West Virginia and Kentucky, the votes there, because we want to atheist shame Bernie. We want to get him to say, I don't believe in God, in which case that'll hurt him. And he's doing well in the polls in West Virginia and Kentucky. That'll bring him down. That'll bring Hillary up because she's religious. She's going to play that card. She's going to say, oh, look at this guy, fucking atheist over here. And so they were colluding with the media in that situation too. Okay, let's try to get a question like that. Let's try to give them a question like that and sit back and relax and watch what happens and see if we could chip away at his lead over there. Of course there was collusion. Of course the DNC is against Bernie Sanders. And this proves everything he's been saying right about the political establishment and the Democratic establishment. They're incredibly corrupt. It's a circle jerk of power and money. And you don't think they also represent the corporations? And they try to fight for business as usual? That's their whole purpose. That's their whole point. So, there you have it. Every single fear from Bernie Sanders supporters from day one has been proven correct. The DNC was biased against him. They did fight against him. There was collusion between the top DNC officials and the media. And this idea of like, oh, what do you mean? They're not running with anti-Bernie narratives. They're not against him. He's given a fair shot. What are you talking about? No, this dude had the deck stacked against him from the beginning, and he still managed to almost win. Which tells you what? Trouble ahead for the general election. Because Hillary got through the primary with smoke and mirrors. Sure, he had a massive lead from the beginning because of overwhelming name recognition and celebrity status. She coasted on that all the way to the nomination and had to deflect and obfuscate from Bernie Sanders' correct attacks about policy substance. So she got through the primary on smoke and mirrors and name recognition, barely, with the deck stacked against Bernie Sanders. The more people learned about Hillary and the more they knew about her, the worse she did. And then now you got a general election, and you're not running against somebody like Mitt Romney or Marco Rubio or Jeb Bush, who's even more establishment and even more insufferable than Hillary. You're running against Donald Trump, who, he's an asshole, but 30% of the time, 40% of the time, when he's talking about trade, when he's talking about corruption, his rhetoric is better than hers. So watch out, man. Watch out. Their arrogance and their hubris knows no bounds. And it may have just bungled us into a Donald Trump presidency. Well done.